Hey, 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 it's your girl Nay coming to you with another episode of As Told by Nay, the podcast. What's up, y'all? I know it's been a little minute since I've graced your airwaves with some As Told by Nay convo. And I'm sorry, y'all. Listen, life has been getting the best of me, okay? I have been super busy. I don't know if it was like August, I was so wrapped up in Vegas, and then school was starting back, and it was just a lot of stuff going on that moving into the end of August and coming into September, I just have not found the time. I'm thinking that I'm going to have to change my day, and I know I was playing with a couple of days back and forth with you guys, but Tuesday might be it. Tuesdays might be it because it's looking like this is the time, or the day rather, that I'll actually be able to do this at 8 when y'all home from work, y'all chilling, y'all vibing, y'all can have this amazing conversation with me and my guests if I have them. Impromptu. I know I didn't really give y'all much notice that this was going down tonight, and big shout out to my guests for tonight for just on the whim, like, hey, I need you, and pulling up on the kid to have this conversation. So if you miss it right now, it's cool. I understand. Just make sure that y'all double back. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button while you're at it and check it out later. So I'm gonna go ahead and get her on so we can go ahead and start this conversation. But before I do that, if I had to give tonight's conversation a title, I would call it Spoil the Child. No, what is it? Spare the rod, spoil the child. I'm sure everyone has heard that saying before, at least once in their life. And we're going to talk about exactly what I mean by that if you haven't heard it. And why are we talking about that tonight, Nay? So let me go ahead and get my guest on first before we dive into all that is episode 80. Hey! Oh, can't hear you. I cannot hear you. You can't hear me like at all? Oh, so I wonder if everybody else can hear me running my mouth and doing my whole spiel. Were you able to hear? Hold on. Can you hear me when you're backstage? No or yes? No. Hold on, because now I'm concerned. Let me see if can anybody? Oh, they can hear me. They can hear me on the live. Hold on, because now I'm concerned. Okay, let's try this again, because why I can't hear you? Say something. Dang, that's nuts. So how about this? Leave and then come back. You know, and that's just how that go when you going live. When you having a live show, sometimes technical difficulties happen, and sometimes they don't. So we're gonna try to get her back on here though. We're gonna try and get her back on here.
Okay, I can hear. I can do all
Yes. All right. Hey girl.
girl.
How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. This is your first time like on my show as a guest. I know that you are a big fan of As Told by Nay. You always chime in, tap in, have lots of comments and dialogue. But it's your first time actually like being a guest.
Yeah. Finally, I'm finally over here in the guest seat. Okay.
Thanks. And it's because we definitely need your expertise for tonight's conversation.
Okay.
But before we get all into that though, you don't get no pass just because I know you for real. Where your drink at?
You know I got my wine.
Okay, great. So boom. What are we toasting to for the evening?
You know, today's felt like a Monday to me, so we're just gonna toast to making it through the day. Okay.
I will drink to that. Today definitely felt like a Monday. It was very chaotic. It was a lot going on.
It was a whole lot going on.
It was a lot going on. I'm baby stressed, but it's okay.
I worked all the way to my normal schedule. Now you know. You know I get off of work early.
You and me both, honey. You and me both. So they really had us. They made us work for our check today.
Right.
That's what I'm hearing. Okay. Ain't nothing wrong with that sometimes, Right. All right, so we finna get into some excuse me come again questions before we start the convo. Nothing major, nothing. I'm in the wrong spot. Look, y'all, I ain't did this show in so long. I'm like fumbling a little bit, but it's okay. We gonna get with it. We gonna get with it. 4 random questions that you do not get to prepare for, and it's the light work. Just answer some little icebreaker, and then that's it.
Lord, here we go.
All right, question number 1. What's the last person you said I love you to? And if it is your mother or your child, it doesn't count.
I said I love you to whatchamacallit.
Is this gonna be somebody that we not gonna name tonight?
No, we not doing that. You know that.
I understand. I definitely understand.
But
all right.
Know and we know.
Huh?
I said, but you know, and I know, and we know.
And we know. What the young people say? What's understood ain't got to be discussed or something like that. What's understood ain't got to be explained. All right. Question number 2. What is your biggest turn on?
My biggest turn on? I think, I don't know, I have two big ones.
Okay.
I got 2 big ones. Like, they have to smell nice and they have to have good dialogue. Like, I'm not going to keep talking to you if we can't talk about it.
I can definitely dig that. Okay, question number 3. What has been the hardest decision that you've had to make?
I think hardest decision I've ever had to make. Dang, that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
You never really think about it like that when you're doing it.
Facts. That's a good point.
Let's say I can say, okay, stop talking to somebody that I know I really, really like, but I know they ain't really no good for me. So just exit. That's pretty hard.
That seems to be a hard one for a lot of women, but that's a conversation for another day.
Right.
I'm going to just go ahead and put it out there, though. Ladies, stop ignoring them red flags and getting to the point where now you like him or like her, and now you can't move on because now you like, well, it's almost like maroon. It ain't really green yet.
Right. It might be burgundy, but
look tint, but it ain't red. And question number 4. How do you feel about kissing on the first date?
With all this other stuff going on, like COVID and monkeypox and stuff, don't kiss me. Don't kiss me. Don't kiss me.
Okay. So
especially if we ain't sat close enough either. Like, if we ain't sat close enough for me to be able to get a whiff of what your breath may smell like too, like, don't kiss me.
Okay, somebody asked me that recently, and I have mixed feelings about it. I definitely feel what you're saying as far as COVID and monkeypox go, but I also feel like a part of me deep down is like, I'm really like, if the mood is right type of person. If the vibe is there and the date went well and I'm comfortable with you, like we have that understanding, go for it. I can only say yes or no. I can either let it happen or I can, but if you feeling it, I'm going to tell everybody always shoot your shot.
Now,
shoot your shot.
Off swift, real a vibe with it,
Right.
Hey, if they do that, then I might let them like slide it in. But just the, contemplating on us or planning on like, oh, we gonna kiss. No, I'm not.
Right. Right. That's very awkward. I don't think we should talk about it. I don't think it should be a conversation. Just like I don't feel like sex should be a conversation. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. Like we don't have to plan and schedule it.
I think when you plan it, you mess things up.
Now I feel like you weird, and I don't want it.
Right. Because you can't talk good when it comes to sex, but you might do something good, but I won't even know because you done turned me off with the talk.
Right. Hey. Well, hey, little baby boy.
I love my juice. He wants juice.
Oh, well, do we need to get son together before we get started?
Really quick. Come on.
So, for those of you that are just joining, I have Miss Deja on here, impromptu, as told by Nate episode. Thank you guys for tuning in and having this dialogue with us. And the conversation title is Spare the Rod, Spoil the Child. And we're going to talk exactly about what that means. I'll give her a chance to introduce herself and why this is relevant to her. But just to give you guys a background of why I'm even having this conversation. Y'all know I'm a therapist. I have a background in the family unit. I've done like DCF stuff. I've worked with a bunch of different agencies in Florida, and as it pertains to family and children and things like that. And we all know that there sometimes is a cultural difference in what we deem appropriate parenting and unhealthy parenting. So I'm gonna give her this scenario just because I know she can really speak to the topic. And we're gonna just dissect that thing. I'm sorry, words are hard today. But before we get into that, I'm gonna go ahead and let Ms. Deja introduce herself, let people know who she is, what she do, and at the end, I'll give you more opportunity to kind of let the people know where they can find you. But for right now, just let the people know who you are and why this conversation is relevant, why I even got you here.
Okay. So, hey, everybody. My name is Deja. I am a family support worker. So that's pretty much why she chimed me in the conversation tonight. You said who I am, what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much it, yeah. Family support work. I work for a social services agency. So me and Nate will be talking and stuff, having these talks. So tonight was definitely the time to go ahead and have a show about one.
Right. And as you guys can see, she's a mom. So I definitely want to get her insight as a professional as well as she's a parent. So, and a Black parent at that, because that's exactly what we're about to be talking about. Because there's definitely a difference. So spare the rod, spoil the child. First of all, I'm gonna ask you, what does that saying mean to you? Like, what does that mean? Have you heard it before?
I've heard it before. Like, growing up, I heard my auntie saying it, my grandmas them saying it, but I never really got to the nitty gritty of asking them like what that means. Like, I just thought it was because if you got a spoiled behind child, then they just gonna end up rotting or end up doing, the wrong thing. You always gonna have to come to their rescue and stuff like that. That's how I looked at it to be.
Right. And I mean, pretty much that's kind of what it is. But growing up in church, I knew what that meant from the beginning, because when I was in like 1st and 2nd grade, I went to a private church school, and they used to pop us. Like, it was okay for them to, get some act right in the classrooms, and that's what they would say to us. Right. Better rod, spoil the child. We're gonna pop you with this ruler. We're going to, get some straightening, because if we don't discipline you, basically beat your behind, you're going to be bad. You're going to be rotten. You're going to be spoiled. Nobody gonna be able to do nothing with you. So, that's the whole mindset behind if you spare the rod, meaning don't spank them, don't discipline, then they're going to be spoiled and, unruly, basically, is what I got from that.
Okay, yeah. So, that makes sense.
Let's talk a little bit about it, because something that I also noticed is with our generation, and I'm going to include you in our, because I think this is between like the 25 to 40 age range.
Okay.
Most of us have children at this point, you know, whether they're little kids or older kids. Discipline is not the same as it was when we were children. It look a little different. The way we talk to our kids look a little different. The way we discipline them look a little different. And I can remember growing up feeling like I got in trouble and the discipline was on point, but never afraid of my parents. Okay. Never fearful of them, like, oh my God, they abusing me, they hurting me. And I would hear stories about other people like calling CPS on their parents or like calling the police when they get a spanking. And, you know, amongst African American culture, the running joke is, we don't do that. Like, I wish you would call the people on me. I've heard that a couple different times from different, you know, parental figures in my life.
Right.
So as I became an adult, like, I have found it kind of hard in my profession to find that balance of what is deemed actual abuse versus old school parenting, or like culturally, this is just how we discipline our kids.
That's how we, yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna ask, and it's kind of personal, and you can choose not to answer this, but just growing up in your household, like, can you remember getting spankings? Like, what was discipline like when you were not acting right as a kid?
So of course, yeah, we got spankings. I can say, like, my mom, she pretty much tried to like pass her way of parenting down from, like, she got it from the way she was, you know, raised from my papa and my grandma. And she would always say, like, I'm gonna hurt you with my words. Like, I'm hands on you. After I finish talking to you, like, you gonna wish I whooped you, basically. So and I guess that's how my grandpa used to, you know, discipline her and her siblings and stuff like that. So I ain't gonna lie, you know, she did whoop us. She whooped us, but after a while, like, whoopings get tiring, you know. As a mom now, I know, like whoopings, they get tiring. Spankings tiring. We be more tired than, how Medea said it in the one play, I'll be more tired than you after I'm finished.
Right.
You know, okay. Tiring. So she basically just disciplined with her mouth.
Okay. So do you ever feel like it was like overboard, or like, this is verbal abuse? Like, I mean, we grown at this point, so it's just kind of like,
I mean, yeah, some of the stuff she was saying, and still to this day, you know, like, you know, she'll say, we'll have our conversations. Back then, of course, I couldn't say, like, you know, like, I felt like I couldn't say, like, you know, you hurting my feelings. You saying, like, you going a little too, you know, deep now. Right. But now, she still use the same words and stuff like that, or, you know, discipline or talk the way she want to talk. And I'll just be like, you know, I'm just finna leave, finna go home because you hurting my feelings. But yeah.
Because I can remember, so I was a very sensitive kid. Right. So my mom couldn't, not that she couldn't, but she just didn't do that anyway. Just because she's like, my daughter is going to be in shambles if I talk to her crazy. So my mom didn't really physically discipline us either. She was more of like, I'm going to put you on punishment. I'm going to take stuff from you, because growing up, like, me and my brother and my sisters, like, we were very active. We like to go outside. We like to play. Like, I grew up in that age before technology really hit. So it wasn't no sitting on the internet, sitting on the tablet, sitting on the phones. We ain't got none of that. So we wanted to go outside and ride the bikes. We wanted to skate. We wanted to jump on the trampoline. We wanted to go down the street to the friend house. We wanted some quarters to go to the julep lady, candy lady house. Like, so my mom would be like, no, I'm not giving you any monies for snacks. You can't go outside. Like, don't turn on my TV. And you can sit in the corner in the room and read or do some homework or something. Right. But my uncles, and I love my uncles to death. Shout out to all the father figures in my life. They were the strict ones and like the disciplinary figures. In my life, I could say I grew up gender roles was very prevalent. So my mom was more chill, and then the men was like, I'm gonna get on your ass. Right. So depending on what I do, my mom would call my uncles for reinforcement, like, get her together type thing. So the verbal was not really there. My mom would just take stuff, and then my uncles would not spare the rod. So do you feel like, and I'm asking this question because I saw it on another podcast too, and I've seen this conversation coming around. Do you feel like you were raised on love or more of survival?
I think me and you, we had this conversation before. I think it was more so of like a tough love thing in our house.
Okay.
And we definitely know how to, be young men and young women, it's by my mom and my stepdad. I feel like there could have been a little bit more, less of the tough love and more of like the more affectionate love and stuff like that, so that I could, like notice what it is when it is before me or whatever. But yeah, it definitely was tough love. It was tough love.
For sure. And I can see a little bit of that because of just like you were saying, the verbal piece. Having to have tough skin. I think that's why too, growing up, like, I ain't like you roasting me. Like, don't talk about me, don't be funny, don't say no jokes, because I'm gonna be sad and I'm gonna cry. And if I start crying, I'm gonna punch you in the face. Like, I was not that kid to go back and forth and joke with you because why are you talking to me crazy?
Right.
Like, I was like talking to me crazy.
Like, I'm not one of them.
Like, don't do that. But so do you feel like in school it was easier for you to like roast back? Like, yeah, because that was how you was in your household.
No, we didn't really like the roasting thing. Like, that was for the boys. Like, they always be like cracking and stuff like that. But yeah, when it did come to like, the girls that wanted to tussle or whatever.
Right.
When it did come to the girls that wanted to tussle, I really didn't have those problems of like, I guess, being bullied or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, after you've got into like a physical or, verbal fight with somebody, you'll have like people saying little things, but I'm gonna, talk my stuff back.
Right. Okay. So let's now transition a little bit before our time. So I don't know if
now you know. You said it's gonna get it. Hold on. I'm so sorry.
Oh my God. That's that parenting we talk about.
Man. He's showing out. He knows he's showing out.
He said, listen, it's not a part of our regular routine. I put him
the phone and stuff just a little bit, but no.
Right.
Ethan.
Oh.
Girl, he has this little boy.
So back in the day, I know my mom would talk about how like, okay, it takes a village to raise a child, right?
Right.
And so if they did something in the neighborhood, like all the neighbors knew them, they was allowed to tighten them up, and then they're gonna tell the parents when the parents get home, they're gonna get in trouble again. Like my uncles then would talk about how they would, everybody getting their lick. And even when I was growing up, not so much because my mom was a little finicky about who we were around anyway. Right. Time started to change even at that point. But even still, like the people at my church or my friends' houses that I was allowed to go to, all the play aunties, uncles that I ain't really know for real, but my mama knew them and trusted them, like they was able to get on my ass if they needed to. But nowadays, like with our generation, oh, you can't say nothing to my kid. Don't tell my kid nothing. Don't put your hands on my kid. Like, and even I've seen some parents kind of being very argumentative, even if somebody's tried to tell them, like, oh, I saw your kid, da 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 da. Now they want to hurt you. As a parent, do you still have the mindset of it takes a village, or are you one of the ones that's like, don't say nothing to my kid, don't tell me nothing about my kid, don't touch my kid? Because I've even heard people say like their moms, sisters and brothers, cousins, like nobody can discipline their kid but them.
Okay, so it's kind of like both sided for me, because you do have like people who they're basically like, they're not here to hurt you, they're here to help.
Right.
But then you also have like people who like, they just angry and they gonna take it out on the kid, or every little thing makes them upset. Like they just don't like kids. Like I've had people around me that say, I don't like kids. Like I really don't like kids. That's why I don't have kids. Those would be the type of people that I won't let discipline my child, because you would be mad at my child for dropping his chip on the floor.
Right.
So I would say I think I'm just both sided on that. Like where I stay at, it's just me and my son by ourselves, and it's like kind of like I have like older neighbors, some young, some ones, but most of them are older, I can't say. And when I'm, outside in the back, we getting in the car or whatever, it's this older couple. They'll always like, if Ethan run off or something like that, they be like, boy, get back here to your mama. Like, I'm trying to carry everything, plus trying to get him, they'll grab him and snatch him up and tell him, you don't run from your mom. And I don't mind that at all, because it could be a day where me and him by ourselves and I may need them. Like, so I think, like I said, it's both sided. No more.
But yeah, so that's understandable, and I'm definitely TT of the year, a bunch of years running at this point. And I tell everybody, like, if you see your kid around me, I'm going to treat your kid just as if they're my kid. So I'm gonna love on them, and I'm going to discipline them if I see it fit. Now, of course, I understand, and that's for the parent to feel or agree or disagree with, or you just don't leave your kid with me. But I feel like there's limits and there's levels to the way that you discipline kids, based on what they've done, based on how old they are, based on how many times you had to remind them not to do this particular thing. So right. I get a lot of respect in that regard. But then I go to work. So let's talk a little bit about this from a professional. So for those of you that don't know, CPS is Child Protective Services. It's called something different everywhere, like wherever you live at, whatever. And I don't currently work for like DCF or anything, which is the Department of Children and Families, but I used to. And I still work with families, and I still work with situations that, may arise and DCF is involved or whatever the case may be. So we're going to talk about a past situation, though, because I was just having this dialogue with someone who has come over to the other side. They once had some involvement and now they don't.
Okay.
So what I find when it comes to discipline, because our generation tends to be a little more lax with how we discipline our kids, when you finally do snap and like snatch them up, it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of kids, like I would not dare have called the police on my mama, my daddy, my aunties, uncles, nobody. But these kids will do it. They will go to school and purposely tell their teachers or, their coaches and different things like that. Like, oh, I got beat up at home, or, like they didn't want to get spanked or yelled at. So they like say something that can really get their parents in a lot of trouble. And you have cases that are then opened up against the parent because of this.
Yeah.
I think it's funny. Well, it's not funny, but it's like Florida is known for very harsh rules and guidelines when it comes to that. Yet Florida is also known for like mess ups, like kids getting killed and, like crazy tragedy. So it's like, how is it both? How y'all real strict and crazy, yet there's so many cases that slip between the cracks? So for you, like, do you ever find it hard in your profession to like tread that line of what is actual abuse versus this might be a cultural thing, this might be the kids exaggerating, this might be a get back, because you see that too sometimes where the other parent will call and give all these allegations, and it's like
that's the number one thing. That'll be the number two, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So it, as a professional, like, how does that look for you? How does that feel? Do your colleagues ever come to you to like ask about, okay, culturally, what do you think about this? Like, how does that look for you in a professional sense?
So we, of course, like we all talk, like we tell each other like, oh, how about, this person did this today, and how about she was in my car and I had to do this and do that. We all talk, amongst each other in the office. When it comes to disciplining the children, because there is a lot of, children that need to be touched in there, but of course we can't do that. When it comes to disciplining them, it's, they give us these redirecting skills, and sometimes it does not work. Sometimes you just, sometimes the kid is cussing you out, going off on you just as if they're doing their mom. Like, most cases that I've seen since I've been working there, a lot of the cases aren't abuse cases. A lot of them are mama can't handle it no more, and I'm gonna keep the rest of my kids, but you just gotta go, because nobody can ever tell you nothing. You don't want nobody to discipline you. You're still a child. You're, some of them, they start at 12, and up, but you're like 12 years old, and you're telling me how to run my house. You're telling me what you're gonna do, what you're not gonna do. So, yeah, definitely, I would say that they're not being disciplined the way that we do, basically.
So I'm gonna give you a scenario, and I kind of want you to just kind of speak about it from both the professional and the personal. So, hypothetical situation: a parent gets frustrated with the kid because they are being unruly, not listening, having to talk to you 1,000,001 times. And this is a person of color, parent and child, who is dating a not person of color. And so the person of color parent is getting upset. Like, I keep telling you, and you're not listening. So now I'm gonna snatch you up, I'm gonna throw you in your room, and now you in trouble. This has never happened to this child before. Like, well, I can't even say it's never happened, but maybe it's never happened to this extent.
Is the child?
Yes, the child. I mean, one of their parents is brown, so they're brown.
Okay,
but they're mixed. So, they go to school and they tell their teacher, this and this happened to me. The teacher is concerned.
Oh God.
And calls the parent that is non-person of color. So this isn't even the parent that did it, but they called the other parent.
Right.
And is discussing it with them. Now the teacher is not of color either.
Okay.
So they are up in arms about, well, why did this kid get snatched? Why did they get thrown in the room? This is abuse. This is crazy. We should call and report this. And da 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 da. And for those of you that don't know, I used to work in the school systems. So this conversation came across to me because I'm a person of color. And I almost felt conflicted because the therapist in me was like, okay, so is this something that happens all the time? Like, is this parent aggressive? Is this parent verbally abusive? Like, is this something that, is familiar to the kid? Or was the kid really just acting up and, mama, daddy, whoever had to snatch them up? And it was kind of put on my lap, like, do we make the call or do we not? And a part of me felt conflicted too, because I was like, I don't want to make the wrong call. And they'd be like, oh, she being biased because she's Black. Or, girl, it was just a lot. It was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of pressure. But I, without making my parental figures sound like craziness. Like there's been plenty of times where I got beside myself and had to get snatched up, you know?
Right.
But it wasn't like I said earlier, it wasn't like a fear of my parents. It wasn't a fear of the people taking care of me. It was like, oh shit, like they done had enough. Like, but I understood that, like, oh,
Like
they
maybe,
got me. Because that was normal. But that's like that's just discipline. It's a cultural thing.
right.
So now I give this to you. Like, if you're in a situation where this comes about, like, first of all, like, where's your mind going in that type of situation?
I think the first thing, like you said, we would want to know, like, is this happening all the time? And then, okay, like you said, the teacher and the other parent was talking about it, basically. Like, what, like, I would want to know, I would want to hear that, you know, parent side and say, like, okay, well, let's try to, like, let's listen to see if they're at fear. Because if they're at fear, then, of course, like, this, you know, this person must be abusive. And in that case, that's when they'll start, like, basically doing like the 6 month or 4 month reviewing the home. Like they'll have the kids still in the home, but they'll be reviewing, like just coming checking in and stuff like that, trying to see how the parents is. The parent of color, they would, you know, have them by themselves, make sure they're talking to them at all times by themselves, because they don't want them, you know, influenced or anything like that by the other parent. They'll definitely like start offering, like, you know, parenting classes, counseling and things in that order, before they just take the child out of the home.
Okay.
So it is steps, like, and a lot of people, they feel like, okay, y'all just taking these people kids out of their home. It doesn't work like that. A lot of the judges now, they're really trying to get the kids out of the system, like, and put them back into the homes. But if it has gotten to the point of like, okay, they're out of their home and they are now in foster care or up under us, it's because, you know, mom didn't follow the case plan while kids was inside of the home. So they felt like, okay, well, we'll take the kids off your hand and then we'll go ahead and, you know, let you tend to your case plan. If you don't get your case plan right while the kids are out of your home, then now we get to determine if you get to have your rights as a parent or not. So it is a step process with it.
So I've always been on the other side of it. Like, once the kid has already been removed, right? And then they come through me to, like, a part of that parenting, a part of that substance abuse, a part of that family therapy, so that they can get the kid back, or it's a part of their case plan. But what makes somebody like when you guys go in, because what I find too is the case plans sometimes are very hefty. There's a lot of things that need to be completed on this case plan.
It's so
kids in your house. And
I'm sorry.
A lot of the parents are like, you know, scheduled, like timing and availability, resource, like it's just be a lot for them, and they get caught up in a situation even worse than before, off of a false allegation, number one, and then number two, just off the basis of I can't, which I get it when it comes to your kids. I can't should never be the vocabulary. I understand that. But for some people, like, it really be a struggle. Let's say that. So if you get a call about abuse or this and this going on, or someone from the school is concerned, like, what deems it okay, we're going to give you a case plan? Is it like all cases get a case plan just at the bare minimum, and then depending on the severity, it go from there?
So they start with like intensive parenting or parental, like intensive parenting, I guess it's like one whole package, but they have like different like phases of the intensive parenting. Like they'll have well, you just need parenting for a newborn, or parenting for toddlers or something like that, or it's different phases. So they basically start with just the parenting classes, and then if it's like you'll do a psychological treatment thing, like a evaluation, and depending on whatever the psych person says, like if they feel like okay, they need a anger management course, they also need to be on meds. And sometimes you got people that's just, I think they don't understand like the part of like they don't have, how can I say this? They don't think of it as being a parent and as being a person that's working, the case. So they're just like, oh, well, she's so nervous, she's so jittery right now. Not even thinking like mom may be nervous and jittery because she, going through this situation, but because seeing like, oh, she's so nervous, she's so jittery, she's on drugs. And they automatically say, oh, now you have to do drug tests. You have to give me at least drug test clean. And if you don't, then boom. And 9 times out of 10, parents, they be smoking weed and stuff like that. Can I say they be smoking weed and stuff? They smoking weed and stuff, and they party, hang out, and make hard drugs. But if they see even that, they're gonna be like, okay, well now you got to go through this counseling. Like it just basically goes on. So like if this comes about wrong, now you got to do this, now you got to do that, right. And then sometimes they want to see you like interacting with your child, like how right now, like this, they'll probably say to me, oh, well, you can't even redirect him. You can't even, get him to sit and watch TV. So now you're going to have to go through an intensive parenting course, or now you're going to have to learn some new redirection skills when it comes to parenting. Like they'll look at one mistake or look at something and turn it into a different, situation. And then it'll just add more and more things to your case plan.
Right. Which is so crazy because so out the gate, like you about to have to do something.
Right. You already starting off with parenting classes.
Right. Wow.
And for instance, like if, something domestic came about, you got to do parenting courses plus anger management. And then if they find out, oh, you just doing drugs, I had a case before where mom said, she told, the site evaluation lady, oh, I smoke weed from time to time, not all the time, but I smoke weed. Now you do drug evaluations and stuff like that. So it's harsh, and some, like you said, it might just be a slang one time, and now kid, they mad, go to school, and they tell their teacher or somebody, hey, mommy did this. And if you have a teacher who's not of color, who doesn't believe in, disciplining your child that way, right, they're gonna blow it up to something else. And 9 times out of 10, like I've even had, some situations where the little girl has said, I didn't say that. I didn't say it was mommy. I said it was my sister hit me, and then it was mommy. And now they're not even in the home. And then when it comes to like them just taking them out of the home, like as soon as they get the case, it'll be because, okay, somebody reported this. Now when I go to the house and we do a home study, you ain't got no food in the house. You don't have like, the beds and stuff, like it's not up to par. They all sleeping in one room together, and they should, have separate rooms at this time or something like that. Or you just in one apartment, a 1-bedroom apartment with 5 kids. Now, bigger issues when they come and do the home studies and stuff like that. Now they're taking them out because of that. And right. Then now you have to work your case plan.
I remember one case, and it's kind of sad, where a mom actually called for help for herself, like, hey, I lost my job, this and this going on, like I need some help, like assistance basically. And they were asking her about, like the kids in the house, and they called DCF on her and was saying like, oh, you're not able to take care of your kids. But it's like, well, yeah, that's why I'm calling and asking for some assistance. Right. And I want to have these people come take my children out of my house because I'm struggling.
Right.
Which is, I think some of the rules to like the whole child services is unfair. It's very like cookie cutter, and they try and put everybody in the same box when it should be very situational, because situations are different.
There should be a lot more. It should be a lot more investigation, because right. It's usually CPS. They'll take them first, and then they'll either end up with, an agency, or they'll stay with either CPS, DCF, or whatever. So I feel like CPS, and we say this a lot around the office, like dealing with the cases and stuff, like the agencies dealing with the cases will be like, well, this should have been thought out. Like this child mom, you know, loves her or loves him, and they taking care of all the other kids and complaining. But because this child is, having behavior issues, or this child is mad about something that didn't go their way, now everybody got to suffer, basically. So I think that it should be a lot more investigation when it comes to that, because sometimes you'll get a service worker who, probably having a bad day, and they just gonna write some stuff down. And I've heard before, like, parents, of course I can't tell the parents, like, yeah, you're right, but I've heard before, a parent telling me about a certain person that may work in the office or work upstairs from us, and they'll be like, yeah, she had a nasty attitude, she was this, that. And because I'm working in the office and I've came in contact with this person and I've seen this person handle different situations the same way, just because that's just who she is, I'm in my head agreeing like, yeah, she probably just, had a bad day, or she was having another one of those moods and she just went ahead and checked off, yeah, she need to do this, she need to do that, she need to do that. And it's sad.
So how does that then work? Because I kind of feel like that goes back to like with law enforcement or teachers, where that this person, this teacher, this police officer is not good, and they're doing stuff excessively. Like, I swear to God, when I was in school, my mom used to think I was tripping, but I had my 8th grade math teacher, Miss Powell, and I'll never forget her. Like, she was extra. Like, I did talk a lot, but she was OD. And it wasn't just me, it was hella kids. And so it's like all the teachers knew that, and they didn't like say nothing. Or like police officers know that some of the police officers really be like rough and manhandling people, and they don't need to be on the street, but they don't say nothing to their higher ups. Like, so for you, if you know that there's a particular worker that's being extra, like, do you say anything, or is it more of like a like, how does that work?
So we do have conversations with our supervisors, and we'll say, well, so she got an attitude today. She just basically don't want to do this. You try to communicate with her as far as in what's going on with the case, or what should you do, because basically as a family support worker, I'm pretty much assisting the case manager. So we're pretty much hands-on. They go to court and they talk to the judge based off of the notes and stuff we give them and the observations that we saw. So we have to contact them a lot. And if we go to our supervisor, like, hey, for example, Nancy, she, she's mad today. She don't want to answer the phone. I've been calling her, or, she just giving me half-ass answers to a certain situation or whatever. We can report it, but it's really up to our supervisor or whoever else they take it to, like, what they're going to do. Because you do have some agencies where they're like, I'm like the higher up, and the ADPs, like, they're pretty much like, okay, well, we just really need to get this case. We need to get all this stuff like basically closed, and we need to continue doing what we got to do as far as in the case plan goes. We're not really worried about no mess ups or no attitudes, right? Have a lot of people that sweep things up under the rug, and it's not until like something extreme happens where, like, for example, a case manager done lied and said she done seen these kids, and she never went to go see these kids, but was writing false documentation and stuff like that. They never get to the bottom of things until something like that happens, and now child is in danger at a home or something like that, or something big happens because we kept sweeping things up under the rug.
Right.
So we can talk as much as we can, but it's all about, like, we can't do no firing. We can't tell nobody, oh, you know what, you don't need to work here no more, or you shouldn't have got your degree or whatever. Like, we can't do that. We want to say that, but what is that going to do for us?
Right. And that's crazy, because that exactly what you just said. There are some that are just so lackadaisical, and they just want to get the case off their desk, so they just kind of going through the motions. And then you have other people that are just like picking through every little thing with a fine-tooth comb. I cannot tell you how many times I used to get referrals, and I'm reading it, and then I meet with the family, and I'm like, why are they here again?
Right?
Why did they take your kids? Like, this don't even make no sense. And it's really sad because a lot of people get caught up in the system just based off of the kid wanting to have their way, or like the other parent being spiteful, or just, cultural misunderstanding of a situation. And I don't know, this came up because somebody was really like asking, like, how do we start to usher in a new understanding? And it was another person of color, and she was just like, I feel like parents need to get back to the mindset of, it takes a village, and really understanding like discipline is important. Like,
Right.
some of these kids go to school and do this, and they don't even realize. Like, I had this one kid that went to school and said these things because one of his classmates got removed and placed with the grandma, and he wanted to go live with his grandma. So he went to school and said these things. They called the people on his mama so that he could try and go live with his grandma. The grandma was like, no, he can't go stay here. Like, when it all came down. And so now he had to go stay with the daddy. The daddy was struggling, so then he got removed from there. It was just like a whole big old thing. And it's like, did we really take the time to like
take him from
investigate this and see if he needed to be removed from mom, and like what really was going on?
Right. And 9 times out of 10 they don't. But also, like, when it comes to kids that are like, 12 and up, I'm gonna say 12 and up because the kids that are at the agency that I work for, the 12-year-olds think they're growner than me. So okay, so the kids that are 12 and up, it starts to backfire on them. Like, when it's like certain situations like that, where they have called, like basically told school, hey, mom did this, and I just don't want to be there. But it's because they're upset. Now they're here in the system, stuck in the system, pretty much like mom. She basically only get visitation with you only on the weekend. You get to go stay the night with your siblings only on the weekend, and after that, it's you pretty much still stuck here with us. It backfires on them because now they want to go home. Now they miss mom's love because now they're here with a bunch of kids who are ruthless, because they never had no guidance at all. And then also, like, you're in these, I wouldn't say poor living circumstances, but they're not what you're used to when you were with them. So, and then you got to be waking up all different times of day. You only fed when they tell you to eat. Like, it's different from how it was when you at home. And now it's like it backfired on you because you wanted to be so disrespectful, or you wanted to, do bad and stuff in school. It all caught up to you, and now you're in the system. And now mom pretty much can't do nothing about it until the judge or somebody else honor her to get you back.
Right. That sounds like jail.
Right. And honestly, we have somebody else, like, a situation that came about where the child, he wanted to claim games and stuff, had an ankle monitor on him and already, and he went in mom's safe or whatever. I guess he knew the code, and he took her gun and, was walking around school with it and stuff like that. And, CPS, they would have had it, took him and let her keep the rest of the kids. And he's sitting up in the system, running away from time to time, wanting to go back home. And at first, when we talked to him about it, it was like, he thought it was all fun and games because he felt like he could be home. But now, like, as I see this child and I, we talk to him when he's in passing and stuff like that, he want to go home, and he's very sorry. But they using it, like they JDC and stuff like that. They don't want to see these kids no more. They don't want them in the Jack centers or the programs. All that stuff is not working because now they're thinking like, okay, this is like, that's fun. That's what everybody my age is doing. We're going to the Jack center. We're going to the programs. Like, oh yeah, free. You know how they be or whatever. But nobody ain't never, nobody ain't never seen nobody going into a foster home, and now you can't live freely and do what you want to do. You got people telling you what to do, when to go to bed, when you get to go and lay down, if you can use a phone or not, because some of them you can't even have a phone, whether it's mama gonna pay the bill or not. So it's worse than jail if you ask me. That's what they say.
Sounds like it. That's terrible. So as a parent, like, do you believe in whoopings? Like, do you feel like physical discipline is a thing, or are you kind of keeping the same mindset of your mom and like verbally, like that's the way to go?
I know you see my face right now. Like, I believe in whoopings. I want to give a whooping right now. Like, I believe in whoopings. But then again, it's like, okay, I believe in it, but then again, it's like, okay, it's some situations where a whooping is not always needed. Like, sometimes you do need to just talk it out to them, because sometimes they probably need better understanding when it comes to certain situations. And I've been a child before, like, where I would be like, well, she didn't have to cuss me out about it. All she had to do was, talk to me and tell me right from wrong or whatever, because just because you think that you know it and I'm supposed to know it doesn't mean I know it. So, sometimes where we just doing stuff and they just doing stuff that they're not supposed to be doing. And when I give you the look a couple of times and you stop for a minute and then you go back and do it, you deserve ass with it. Yeah.
And I feel like, when I give my parents their nurturing parents program, I always just speak from experience, because I don't have any like kids myself, but I've helped raise several. Mm-hmm. And I feel like redirection is like the main piece of that. Like, if I'm going to tell you something, I'm going to tell you a way to do it right. Or if it's something that I don't like, I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. And if you continue to do it after I just told you, now I might need to, apply a little bit more pressure. But as long as the kid understands, they know why they're getting in trouble. I feel like when you just jumping on a kid ass all the time and they don't know what's happening, like, that's when it's too much. Or if you just yelling and cussing and fussing, and they know it's wrong because you yelling and cussing and fussing, but how do I do it right? Right. Like, what is the alternative?
Right. Tell me what you want.
Right. And, I feel like that's the major difference between somebody that's just being abusive and somebody that's like, okay, I'm trying to give my kids some direction. Because I do feel like I agree with the term spare the rod, spoil the child to a certain extent, because when you aren't in control of the situation or you're not teaching the kid the right way, they will be spoiled and bad and talking back, and you can't control them. They're going to go to school and do the same thing. You don't want nobody else to say nothing to them. That's all these little hooligans nowadays.
Right.
But, there definitely has to be some type of order, period.
Right.
I don't know. I got my ass beat and I came out just fine. People will be like, oh, whoopings don't work, or people should whoop their kids because, it don't do nothing. I have some friends that was like, I would get the whooping because it didn't hurt and still go do what I want to do because I know another whooping coming, but it really don't matter.
All she can do is whoop me, right?
But that's why you got to know your child. You got to know your child. You got to know what's going to work, especially when you're redirecting them. Like,
I've had a cousin before that told me, like, oh, like, younger, like, as we was calling, I know you probably called the police on the phone before. We're like, call. So me and my cousins, I would never forget, like, we was always prank calling and stuff like that every time we would, gather at either my house or their house or whatever. And one time, like, we hadn't got a whooping so bad before because the police actually showed up and everybody was police actually showed up.
Right.
And we got a real bad whooping because it was the night of, the BET Awards. Like, everybody used to pile up on the BET Awards and stuff. And we got a real bad whooping. And my cousin, like, the next time we linked up or whatever, she wanted to do it again. And I'm like, girl, I'm not doing this. And she like, oh, all she gonna do is whoop us. All she gonna do is whoop us. And I'm telling you, like, their mom was whooping them for everything. Like, if you get a D on your report card, you're getting a whooping. Like, if you don't wash the dishes by the time I get home, you're getting a whooping.
Right.
Like, your clothes, like, if your clothes come too dirty or something, or you too old, you get a whooping.
Oh, so they were immune to the whoopings. It ain't phased them not one bit.
And some things, like, where we got, a little older or whatever, my boy cousin, me and him, we grew up real close or whatever. I would tell him, hey, let's do this, or we should do this or something. He'll be like, Deja, Now you know my mama is crazy. Like, you know my mama is crazy. Why would you want to do that?
Right.
Why would you want to do that?
You gotta know your child. You gotta know your child. Like, my mama could yell at me a certain way and I was gonna act right because I ain't like it. I don't like you talking to me like that. She didn't really have to hit us because she knew. Like, if we was like, it was just something that she like, oh no, you need a whooping. Like, she would call my uncles, but she wasn't scared to snatch us up. I will never forget. And shout out to Sharon. I knew my mama didn't whoop us when I got to high school. See, you get to high school, you get a little older, start smelling yourself.
Right.
I'm not told this story before, but I was a cheerleader, and she was like, "You can't stay for the game, don't stay for practice." And I stayed my little ass at school anyway, and went to practice and got my uniform and went to the game. And so when I got home, my mama was waiting for me. And she was, snapping, give me that phone. You ain't able to do this, you ain't able to do that, like hard down yelling. And I was just like, I'm sick of this. Like, done raised up and like, well, she ain't gonna, girl. I ain't never seen my mom move so fast in her life. She put on that bed, she picked me up, slammed me on that bed, and got on top of me.
So
you hear me?
Talk to me like I'm gonna fight you like somebody.
Right. She like, oh, you think you grown. And like, to the point where I couldn't hit her. I was not gonna hit her back because it was gonna be even worse. My little brother came in the room like, Mom, stop. You killing her.
Just get her off of me.
Like, right. Please get this crazy lady off of me. And I never, like, I think that was the last time I ever talked about my mama, because it was like, well, she's crazy. Right. She really is crazy. She told me that all my life, but now I believe it. But you know your kids, and you know how you're supposed to do what you need to do to get them to the next level, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. This is a conversation that we could talk on forever and ever, honestly.
Yes, definitely. I think we'd be talking about it anyway.
It's just the nature of work. But it just kind of came up today, like in a mindset of how can we move forward? Like, what can we do to help? Or like, how do we transition this? Because culturally, there's a lot of parents and kids that end up in the system off of false pretense. And it's like, how do we kind of like sway that or be proactive in, not getting caught up in BS when it really is truly BS? But who knows? That's a very loaded question and conversation.
It's like more, like we said, more investigation, but then again, it's like you can say more investigation, but also making it a little bit more lenient to, like, if they jump into the system, like if you investigate it, go ahead and let them get their child back. But then it's like, okay, people who actually need to get these kids taken away, so we gonna have rules for them too. Like, and it's a lot. It's like you said, it's a lot. It's a lot to dig deep into. And, hopefully the judges find a better, way about going.
Right. Exactly. Because there's some parents, they be like, yeah, they just give me a hard time because I'm Black. And I'm like, no, they're not just giving you a hard time because you're Black. They give you a hard time because you need to be given a hard time. Something is being here.
Something not clicking. It's not.
This is not how we're supposed to do this.
Right.
But,
It's okay. Like the same, like you'll be thinking too, like, okay, are y'all using these same investigations when y'all give these kids back to these people who actually like want to, hurt their kid, don't like their kid? We got so many situations where a child has been in a foster care and then they let them go back home and then now the child's no longer here.
Right. Facts. And that's always a sad case. For sure. They need to be looking at these foster cares a little tougher too, because a lot of things happen in foster care that we need to be protecting these babies from. That's a whole nother conversation.
That's a lot. And definitely talk about them, but hey.
Right. All right, very good. So boom, it's 9:00. Woo! I did a show. I'm back, y'all. So for those of you that got on late, joined in late, I think I'm gonna switch to Tuesday nights. I think this is what works best for my schedule because Thursdays is just it's a no right now. Work is crazy and I'm not available. So Tuesday nights looks like it's gonna be the thing for me. I know this was the last minute. So again, thank you to Deja for being open to having the conversation and being available. And then for y'all that popped in, because I didn't really get to promote. So I know y'all saw it last minute and it was like, oh shit, Nay going live. Let me see what she's talking about. So I definitely appreciate y'all for coming through. We're gonna work it out so that I can be right back here next Tuesday for another conversation on Ask Told by Nay, the podcast. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and let's talk about it.
Bye-bye.